Welcome to week 2 of Entrepreneurial Operations Launching a Startup. This week we will discuss in detail the first 2 stages in the value chain, source and produce. Let's begin with the first stage, source. The source stage takes into consideration all the steps required for acquiring all your tangible and intangible resources that you will need as input to your operation. A tangible resource is any resource that you can see or touch. Typically, your tangible resources will fall into 3 buckets: material resources, human resources, and facilities or equipment resources. On the other hand, your intangible resources are those resources which are important inputs into your operation, but which do not exist in any physical or tangible form and which cannot be seen or felt. Examples of intangible resources include ideas, knowledge, patents, copyrights, trademarks, and databases. Now let's think about some examples of the kinds of activities and processes which are typical in the source stage. If you're in the food industry, it will be important to have procurement processes and inbound quality control processes in place to ensure that you can reliably source your raw materials and to deliver consistently high quality products to your customers. On the other hand, if you have a service company, such as a media production company, it will be important to have recruiting and hiring processes in place in order to source your human resources, such as your film directors, your graphic designers, and your editors. Once you've thought about the activities and processes for the source stage, you can review the next element in the capability section, which is the partnership section. You will need to also consider your key performance indicators for the source stage so that you can track and monitor whether your sourcing processes are effective and efficient. And then you'll need to also consider capacity of your sourcing process to ensure that you have sufficient capacity to meet your projected customer demand. After reviewing the capability section of the value chain canvas, you will also need to consider operational cost drivers in the source stage. Remember to think about both your fixed costs and your variable costs. If you're a manufacturer, a critical cost driver in the sourcing stage is the cost of raw materials and equipment. Whereas for a service company, a critical cost driver will be your human resource costs, such as salaries for your employees who are your service providers. Next, you will consider the second stage in your value chain, produce. The produce stage includes all the steps that you need to complete in order to transform your resources into saleable products and services. Now let's think about the activities and processes needed in the produce stage. If your startup produces physical goods, then the produce stage will include all your manufacturing activities and all the steps for creating your physical products. If your startup provides a service, then the produce stage will include all your front of house and back of house activities. Front of house activities are those activities in which you as a service provider interacts with your customer, whereas back of the house activities are any behind the scenes processes which your customer will not see. For example, in a restaurant, front of the house activities are any activities that occur in the waiting areas, bar, or dining area, while back of the house activities are any activities that occur behind the scenes in the kitchen or in the office. As a startup, for the activities and processes section, you should also consider your one-time launch activities as well as any recurring and ongoing activities. For example, if you're opening a restaurant, consider all the activities needed to open the restaurant for the first time, as well as all your recurring front of the house and back of the house activities. In the same way, if you're developing an app, you should consider all the development activities needed to launch the first release of the app, as well as all your recurring operating activities once the app is live. Once you've thought about your activities and processes for the produce stage, you can review the next section related to capabilities, which is the partnership section. What do you think are some potential partnerships which could be valuable in the produce stage? To consider potential partnerships, you should review your list of activities and processes and determine whether you have the in-house operational capabilities to complete these tasks. In other words, do you have the skills, expertise, systems, and time to complete these activities? As a startup, your time is limited, so where possible, you should consider partnerships, especially for any activities which are not critical or core to your value proposition. As a startup, effective partnerships can also help to reduce your costs in several ways. For example, if you use a manufacturing partner or a software development partner who has specialized skills, they may be able to complete some of the activities at a lower cost per unit that you can do on your own. Once you have identified your processes and partnerships for the produce stage, you should complete the remaining sections of your value chain canvas for the produce stage, including key performance indicators, capacity, and cost drivers.